why, because there's nothing special about me.
Good day, overnight Dominion here. Sorry, I was just getting Art Bell ready for tonight. As we resume part 3 of the Timothy Good interview, ET and UFOs extraordinaire as we march through the overnight here on From Day One. And now, here's Art.
It's very well done. Are you familiar with numbers stations?
Yes, sir. Well, as far as UVB76 and the others out of China, but not any stateside ones, no, sir.
Well, okay, there are on shortwave, folks, for real, number stations. I should have recorded one of them, and I will record one of them. You will encounter them on virtually any frequency on the shortwave band. And when you do, you will hear something. You will hear a young lady normally, simply sitting there reading something like this: 9, 17, 24, 99, 97, and it just goes on and on and on. And it is a popular belief that these are spy stations, that these codes are given out to bring specific instructions to agents around the world in foreign countries. And that's, of course, the premise of the movie called The Number Stations. It's kind of interesting. It's frankly, when I watched the movie, my expectations were not very high, and they were exceeded. It was quite good. It's a good drama, and in real life, number stations are quite interesting. Let's go to Georgia and Chris.
Regarding what the previous caller was talking about, maybe why aliens visit us, maybe they know that we're as unique as they are. Maybe it's just us and them.
I think if there is anything unique about us, it's going to be our souls. And that's where I kind of agree with John Lear. I mean, otherwise, we're interesting, we're an evolved life form, at least to some degree, right? Some more than others, I would add. But if there's a reason to be interested in us, it's got to be something more than we understand presently, I would think.
Right. Well, listen, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and it was only a couple of years ago when I said to myself, I wish I had a chance to talk to Art Bell, and now I get that chance again. But anyway, I'm in my mid-40s, and I wanted to tell you about something that happened to me when I was younger, and it was real profound. It may not sound profound with my explanation, but it was, a pretty big deal looking back on it. But when I was a teenager, I worked at a local Dairy Queen in a small town, and I was a new kid in town. And after work at night, the other kids, they just wanted to take me out and show me around. And they took me up to this mountain. It was kind of in the country and in the hills. So we went up to, they were country folk, and we went up into this mountain, and they said, oh, there's this cave up there. It's a haunted cave. So some other kids from work, there was some guys and some girls. We go up into that cave into the mountain, and there's this one particular girl that I was, playing around with and teasing at work all the time. And she was with the group. And when we were walking into the cave, there was this little nook or like a, place where I could kind of dip into like this hole and crevice and hide. And I figured, well, on our way out, I'm going to dip into this crevice, hide, and I'm going to scare this girl coming out. And so I get into this crevice, and I'm about to jump out and scare this girl. And I was so excited I couldn't contain myself. But just as I'm about to jump out, I feel this hand come up onto my chest and physically push me back up against the wall of that cave. And I kind of went into this sort of hard to breathe, kind of like a trance-like state. But I couldn't do anything. And it was literally like a physical hand pushing me up against the wall. So the kids milled by, and
were you still plastered up against the wall as the girl came by?
Well, yeah, I was. And, and what happened was just such a shock to me. I really kind of just forgot about what was going on, and they milled by, and, I came out of it, and the feeling went away, and I followed everybody else out of the cave. And we get out of the cave, and everybody was going, oh, that was pretty cool. And the girls naturally going, well, I was so scared. That was creepy. Well, the girl that I was going to jump out and grab, she jumps up and says, well, I wasn't scared of anything. I was ready for it. And she was holding a 38 caliber revolver
Oh?
in her hand.
Oh.
And I'm just wondering, what was that? I mean, it wasn't like an intuition or an instinct, because I was about to leap out and grab that girl. That was my full intention, was to jump out, grab her, scare her, and get a big laugh. But
So in other words, an iron hand saved your butt.
You can say that, but it was very profound, and I'm just wondering if anybody has ever experienced anything like that before.
Well, that's a hell of a story. I'll give you that. Pretty cool, actually.
Well, see, the thing is, Art, it happened one more time about 5 or 6 years later at a red light, where the red light turned green. I'm the lead car in the intersection, and that unseen hand is back on my chest, and I can't really think or breathe or concentrate or do anything for about 5 seconds. And when it goes away, the cars behind me honk their horn, and I proceed into the intersection just in time to stop as a truck runs the red light just where I would have been had that not had happened.
So you have a guardian hand in your life.
Well, I'm just wondering if that's ever happened to anybody else, because why would that happen to me? People get accidentally shot all the time. People get T-boned in intersections all the time.
Yes, they do.
I mean,
but you have been saved by the guardian hand.
Now, I don't know why, because there's nothing special about me, I'll tell you that. I'm just a single guy who lives with 2 dogs.
There is now. There is now. All right, well, that's one whale of a story. Saved by the hand. Way better than top of the hand, right? Saved by the hand. Had his life saved twice. Anybody else out there experience anything like that? Actually, that's a pretty cool story. And this is... Yeah! Couldn't resist. I love that one. And I like the Iron Hand story, too. Anybody else like that? And it makes me wonder why that man, and why so many others who either get shot or get T-boned and die. In other words, why do whatever these things are pick out certain people? And I guess it probably goes back to the unseen. That's just my guess. The unseen. But what do I mean by that? Soul. Same thing John Lear talked about, along with the containers. All of us. Something to do with the soul, I'm sure. Not the physical. David in Oklahoma, you're on the air. Hi.
Roswell's Art.
Thank you.
Back in 1999, I lived in Mount Vernon, Indiana. It goes along, it's done the cornfields all the way from it's about 5 miles from Illinois state line, and if you followed I-64, it ends up at Scott Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard stories before that Scott Air Force Base had UFOs. Well, back in 1999, me and my kids' mom just got home. It was about 9:30 at night, and I looked off toward the Wabash River toward Illinois, and here comes this light toward us. She goes on in, takes a shower. I get the kids out, take them into bed, come back out. I'm getting groceries out. And I just stopped because this thing is just coming so low. It flies completely over my head. It couldn't have been moving a half a mile an hour. It took like 3 minutes to get completely past me. And it was, and I had a yard light out in front of my yard. Between the road and my front of my house, you probably got about 200 feet. Well, the thing completely covered from the road all the way to the front of my house wide, and it was probably a football field long. There was nothing, no sound, no crickets, I mean, you could hear the crickets, but there was no sound of this thing at all. It was totally amazing. And then about a few years later, well, it was back in 2006, I was up in Chicago, and I heard a guy describe it as an aircraft carrier was blocking the O'Hare Airport. And it was hovering above the O'Hare Airport, and this was on a local radio station in Chicago.
I kind of remember that.
Yes, and they described it the same way I'd always described it, as a floating city block, until I heard that guy describe it as a floating aircraft carrier, or I would say like a floating barge on a river, and it was amazing. And I could, I could see the blue, I could see windows, I didn't see nobody. But I mean, it was just, it wasn't very tall. It had to have little people in there because, I could see that it was no wider than like a river barge, or the depth of it would be no deeper than a river barge. But it was
so
long.
How little would the people have to be?
I'm gonna say you had to be 5 feet or smaller.
Right.
It was
okay.
And I've heard like Scott Air Force Base before from other people saying that's where they are doing these, I believe that's where the UFO, because you could leave Scott Air Force Base and you could go straight to where the UFO flew over me. And I went, and as the thing is coming into the yard, I went and snatched my kids' mom out of the shower, brought her out on the porch. And I was like, because we lived out in the country, there was nobody around. And I brought her out on the porch. She looks up at it, and her attitude was just mind blowing. She's like, "So what? It's a UFO." I'm like, "Oh, are you crazy?" I said,
all right, thank you. That's too much. So what? It's a UFO. Big deal. I'm going back to the shower. That is funny. What is I think I've got a question for the audience. We'll see who's going to be willing. Oh, by the way, I have got Skype all ready to go. So I am going to qualify you all to call on Skype, and I'll play with it tonight. I've been wanting to play with Skype anyway, so it's a good night to play with it. Here's the way you contact me on Skype. Somehow I imagine this lady being dragged from the shower, probably no clothes, or almost no clothes. I'm art.bell51. That's the way you reach me on Skype. Art.bell51. Now, I don't have video. People keep trying to connect with video, and I'm intentionally not hooking up the video. For one thing, it requires more bandwidth, so I'm not going to do that. But we're all set to receive audio. And if you're outside the United States, it absolutely is an opportunity for you to call in. I'm going to give the address one more time, and I hope you'll give it a try. I will absolutely answer it. Art.bell51. That's the way to reach me on Skype. In the meantime, let's go. I just opened Skype up. Those all set. Let's go to Texas and Ross. Hello, Ross.
Good evening, Art. Pleasure to speak to you. I used to listen to you back in 95 and 96 a lot. And one story I've never forgotten, and I tried to call in during the Time Traveler segment you had a few weeks ago. I couldn't get through, but we all just get through whenever we're supposed to. I've never forgotten about Jonathan, or Single 7, the rogue time traveler. Could you please tell me what happened to him? Because he went off the radio, and I never found out.
Listen, I don't know what happened to any of my time travelers. What I can tell you is this. Almost all of them disappeared and have been virtually impossible to contact. I've heard rumors that Dr. David Anderson, who was a pretty convincing guy at the time, is still around or may be around, and I've got somebody trying to contact him, but look, almost everybody who claimed to be a time traveler is gone. What that means, I'll let you imagine for yourself.
Oh, my. It was the best story ever. He had an answer for every one of your questions.
Oh, yeah.
It could have made a great movie. I don't know why no one made a movie out of it, but it was the best.
Well, there have been a lot of time traveler movies since.
Wow. He was just a rogue who separated from his pod and came back to keep the world warm so the Neen couldn't take over or something like that.
Yeah, I think that this program has inspired a lot of movies that you've seen since those years when we did those shows. A lot of writers were sitting around listening to my show and ended up writing stories that ended up becoming movies.
We could have made a bundle. Anyway, one other question. Years ago when I was out here living alone on my property in Texas, I was camping out for many years, but somewhere in 95, 96, I saw a shooting star hit the ground between me and the next town south of here. And I never went out there to see what happened. There was a friend of mine and his daughter out here. They were looking at the ground at the time, and they kind of saw remnants of the flash, and I told them about it. They doubted me until he went back to his town in Fredericksburg the next day and heard about it on the radio, because people from there had seen the flash from, 40 miles away. And it was between me and the next town, which is 10 miles south of me, and I never did go out to look for a crater, and I recently went on Google Earth to see if there was a crater of some sort, but the next day there were helicopters around, and that metal is probably worth a lot of money if I would just go out there and look for it, and I was too busy building my house, and I never did go just look for the crater or any such thing.
Well, if there were helicopters around, there probably were men in black and all kinds of things looking for what you wanted to find, and I'm sure they got it and you didn't. On Skype, hello, Frank, you're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
No.
No, you're all broken up, sir. No, might as well be from another planet. Not a good connection, but thank you for trying, Frank. Not a good connection. I'm sorry. I'm not sure whose side that was on, but we gave it a shot. Now, here's something important, folks, if you're able to do it. If you're going to try the Skype direction, please, if you're able to, number one, wear a headset mic, if you have one. That's ideal. If you don't have a headset mic, then what I would ask you to do is to get very close to the microphone on your speaker. I really, really, really want to experiment with Skype. I hope we get some good connections. Again, to call me, it's simply art.bell51. That's simple, and you'll get through. All right, let's go here, Arizona, and Derek.
Hi, glad I made it through.
I'm glad you did, too.
There's been a lot of inspiring, kind of conversation about why we're important. And
Yes.
I'd like to preface this with saying that I come from a strong Christian upbringing and believe every word of the Bible. If it's some people think it's a metaphor, sometimes the metaphor is just as important. However, we're talking about aliens making hybrids, and I don't think, people when the Bible was written could relate to that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been able to find anybody in any church, at least Protestant church, that would be willing to correlate what we know or think we might know about aliens with the Bible. A lot of them kind of just reject it, and I think it fits quite nicely. And as far as how we're important in this neck of the woods, to quote Timothy, I think it has something about us being created in God's image. And I also like what he said about...
Let me ask you this, sir. Do you think that aliens, if they exist, are also created in the same image of the same God?
Not at all.
No?
That's why we're unique. No.
Also, God is unique. God is unique only to human beings and planet Earth.
No.
No?
Let me. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is God's everywhere. He's omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. But
okay, if that's true, sir, then would he not be the God of another race as well?
He is, but those races aren't created in his image. For example, the angels, if you would like to prescribe the name angels to alien, I kind of see them synonymous.
You do?
I kind of do. And in that line of thinking, I don't think that they have emotions. I think they, because of their celebrity,
that's not consistent with the Bible, sir. I'm sorry, that's you're going way off track there. Either God is everywhere and everybody's God, or not. And angels equal aliens or aliens equal angels? I don't think so. I mean, your whole premise began with, I believe every word in the Bible. So that just doesn't work. I'm going to try Skype again. Brendan, you're on the air on Skype. Hello.
Mega Roswell's on.
Well, thank you. You've got a good connection. Where are you?
Santa Barbara, California.
Santa Barbara. Excellent. Welcome to the program.
It's really good to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, it's just, it's incredible. But tonight didn't go well.
No, it didn't.
And I'd actually, I'm so excited that I signed up for Sirius.
And you know what? Let's examine, or you give me your opinion of what happened with Timothy Good.
I think he's a gentleman.
Absolutely.
I think that he might have been a little bit too gentlemanly, but I do think that this is going to be tough, Art.
That's
push
right.
back here a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna
push away.
You're so important to me, but Art, I think you should have read the book.
I should have read the book. Here's the thing. I read a lot, sir. Hold on a second. I read a lot of my guest's book. In fact, my guest's book. Excuse me. I got a signed copy of last night's guest. I didn't know that I had it until after the show. So I do it after I've had the guest on. And the reason is this. I don't want to get a guest on the air who just says, you know what? It's in my book. If I ask them a question, it's in my book. Is not a good enough answer for a talk show. When you're doing a talk show, you want actual information. And so even if they've written a book, you want them to be able to tell the audience about whatever the story is, and not just sort of say, it's in my book.
And, I think the book, as far as, I've read so far, does contain a lot of firsthand witness testimony. He goes and he interviews some people with some really excellent stories. But I don't know why he didn't talk about that. And I think maybe it's because, he wasn't prompted to, or maybe he's just too sweet.
Well,
anyway,
you can't fault me for not trying, sir. I tried to get him to go toward, firsthand evidence. I tried to get him to go toward things, but it all came out sort of third-handish.
Yeah.
Or read my book.
Well, thank you. Listen, and the last thing, I wanted to say that since we use a family, every time my dad gets a nosebleed, he says, "Oh, it's the implant." So you've played a large role in, my family dynamic, and we appreciate all your work in that regard.
I appreciate your call. Thank you very much, and take care. So there you have it. And now we've got a zillion spec calls there. They're coming in by the boatload. So let's go here to Arizona and Bill. Hi, Bill.
Oh, hi, Art. Yeah, first time caller listener. I'm really I'm kind of concerned with your first story, the whole thing in Japan and Fukushima. Those people are volunteering to die that are going to be doing those rods, and we all need to really have our minds focused that they can all get it done. Otherwise, it's been great to listen to you, Art. If tomorrow doesn't go well. I really...
this is not... Well, first of all, understand, it's not tomorrow, although I always worry about tomorrow, but this is going to be going on for about a year. It's going to take them about a year to transfer these fuel rods safely, and it's all going to be a human operation. This is scary stuff.
Right, it's serious. But to go back to, I've been listening the past couple of weeks here to you since you've been on Sirius, and I've kind of been wondering if there's a planet that's out of phase that the interdimensional people come from that won the war where the debris is on Mars, and it isn't taking aliens from way far away. They're right here. They won the war millennia ago, and maybe we're remnants of those that they defeated, and they let us just kind of be until we finally recognize who they are and maybe pose them at that point, and so they keep tabs on us.
Well, I hate to think of myself as a remnant, but you never know.
Kind of weird thought. Just a postulation. Well, thank you, Art.
Thanks for the call, sir, from one remnant to another. Are we remnants, do you think? That there was a war over the human race long ago. That war was, one side was victorious, and now We are nothing but the remnants. Let's go back, if we can give it a try, to Skype and say, hi there, Zach, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. Can you hear me?
Oh, I do indeed.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much for having me. Mega Roswells and 51s from Belgab.
Thank you. Where
as
a matter of curiosity,
Lisa Lamb case that you talked about last week.
Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Oakville. That's just outside of Toronto, Canada.
Okay. And the Elisa Lam case, yeah, go ahead.
Yes. I did some research after I watched the video, and I wanted to share with you one of the theories that's going around on the internet about it.
Sure.
Apparently, around the time that she was found dead, there was a tuberculosis outbreak amongst the homeless population in L.A.
Really?
And someone looked up her name and discovered that it was an anagram for the American classification for tuberculosis or something like that.
That's weird.
And that perhaps some sort of government or some sort of clandestine operation perhaps poisoned her. But I mean, I'm not a believer in this. It's just why it was interesting because I'm sort of skeptical. It still doesn't explain how she ended up where she did. Clothes weren't found. How she got through all these layers of security, the alarm systems, and so forth. Which brings another one where they were saying that perhaps she used, or not she, but whoever offed her used some kind of cloaking technology. Apparently, there's a Canadian company, oddly enough, that apparently has come up with it. Some sort of, she may have just been a victim of some sort of test operation.
Maybe. I have no idea. I'm with you all the way. I mean, look, she went through locked doors that were locked afterward. She went to a place that it's very unlikely she would go. She went through alarm systems that didn't go off. There's so much about the story that is just too weird.
Right. I mean, one thing also to consider is that the hotel was rather decrepit, and it's possible that some of the security measures could have failed at the time. That's another thing that comes to mind.
Possibly. I have no answers. None at all.
I mean, well, neither do I. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I just thought I'd share some of the things that people are talking about. I mean, I personally don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of what happened to her.
I think you're right. We're never going to get to the bottom of it, but it stands out as one of the weirdest cases. And to this day, if I sit down again and I watch that video, it totally creeps me out.
Oh, yeah, me too.
No. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. And take care. Totally creeps me out. There are, and I've got another one, ghost in a hallway and all that sort of thing, but there's something about that case and that video that is creepy, over the top creepy. All right, let's see where to go. Let's go here to Iowa. And Tom, you're on the air. Hi. Hello? Well, maybe I didn't punch the button. Try it again. There we go. Tom, I think you're on the air now. Hello?
Hi, how you doing?
Just fine, sir.
Good. Yeah, I've been trying to get through to you. I sent you a wormhole message about praying mantises were aliens, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, some lady came on the show. Remember that? And she said there was like 8-foot praying mantises.
I do recall, yes.
I thought that was kind of cool. But, I lived in, I was born in like Lake City, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And one day I was walking home from town. It was like in the early 60s. Yeah. And I remember this, but I don't know if it's true or not, but my neighbor a block down the road was looking at something, and I asked her what she's looking at. And she pointed out this big flying saucer just hovering in the air north of town there. And like I said, it's in the 60s. I still remember to this day seeing it up there, but I don't know what happened to it or anything, how it disappeared or left, but I've been trying to get a hold of you and have you heard of anything like that or?
I've heard of nothing but things like that, sir. Again
but that
and again
particular
and again.
one. Right, yeah.
Not that particular one, but like them, sure. A million of them. In fact, we almost shouldn't tell these stories because they are that common. I saw a flying saucer. Well, yeah, me too. I saw a triangle. Me too. So they're not uncommon. They're extremely common. The question is how we flush out what they really are. In my opinion, they're not from here. Is there a possibility they could be that we're doing something that secret? Yes. Now, to go to something that Timothy Good said, and maybe some of you want to reflect on this, I have a very difficult time, and I know Richard C., if he's out there, is going to be hearing this and going, oh, come on, Art. But I have a very, very hard time believing that we have a secret space program. Something so secret and so incredible that we things on the moon, we have bases on the moon, we have bases on Mars and beyond. I truly don't believe that. I would like for it to be true, but I don't believe it. All right, on Skype, you're on the air from where I don't know. Hello. Sun Jim, is that correct?
Yes, it is, Art. Can you hear me?
Yes, and I can't pronounce your name, so help me.
You can call me SJ. I'm a West Coast fisherman. Oh. And I've got some great stories for you. But I wanted to talk to you about the lighter side of aliens and also about God.
Well, I'm glad aliens have a lighter side. Let's hear about that.
Well, for one thing, I've always suspected that a lot of the crop circles are done by alien kids that are on field trip to Earth. And it's part of their classwork. And the guy says, look, we've been teaching you about the solar system and galactic references and connections, and draw it on that field down there just for the fun of it. And the kid gets on as, basically a super califragilistic. Remember those Etch-a-Sketches? Well, they've got one that's century.
No, you're not trying to tell me that,
right?
that Romney has been doing any of these crop circles, are you?
Oh, God. The humor that's inherent in our situation needs to be brought out, because sometimes the irony is all you can live for, you know what I mean?
You said, oh, God, you were going to mention God as well, so.
Yeah, well, I have this other theory that, since we all have a part of God inside of us, I was thinking it's possible that God has all of us at the same time. So that would determine what God is at any given point in time. And, you can trace all the inconsistencies to the various global thought paradigms that we believe in, the belief structures. As they change, God changes.
So then God could be like a trucker going down I-40.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Why not? He is a trucker going down I-40.
Right, I've got the picture. Okay, well, very interesting, and I appreciate the lighter side of anything. Trust me. Enjoy it very much. And that was a good Skype call. Okay, let's go to Canada and Craig. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Roswell's Art.
Thank you.
Not so long ago, you had a gentleman on the phone who was trying to pilot his plane over Area 51. I'm just wondering whatever happened to that guy.
Well, it may well be that a railgun shot him down and he's nothing but dust.
It does seem a bit strange that he was able to use a cell phone, in an aeroplane. It just came across a bit strange, that was all.
Well, I really appreciated it.
Yeah?
I mean, if he didn't have that cell phone and he had not reached out to me, how would we know anything at all? And how would we be wondering now what became of him?
Well, we don't do it. We don't know whether he's alive still or he's gone.
Indeed. Where are you, by the way?
Canada.
I got that, but I mean, where in Canada?
Edmonton.
Edmonton, all right. And you've got an obvious English accent, so...
I'm an English truck driver in Canada, so...
Yeah. You're an English truck driver in Canada?
Yep.
Fascinating. What brought you all the way across the ocean to truck here? There.
We just wanted to do it just to say we've done it, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Make a bit of extra money as well.
All righty. I've got a question for you.
Okay, go on.
What is the most evil thing you've ever done?
The most evil thing I've ever done? I convinced my wife that I was psychic.
All right. Well, good for you. Thank you for the call. Anybody else willing to answer that question is welcome. The most evil thing I've ever done. I don't know why that just popped into my mind, but it did. Ohio brings Uncle Duke.
Hi, Art. How are you?
I'm quite well, Uncle.
Good. Hey, you might find this interesting. I listened to the previous guest talk about Neil Armstrong and such. I knew Neil Armstrong. I'm a late 70s graduate of the University of Cincinnati Aerospace Engineering program. I'm a retired aerospace engineer with the DoD.
Yes, sir.
And I knew him, as well as a student can know a professor, but we got along famously because we were both airplane guys and both really enjoyed talking airplanes. One time in a group setting, I asked him specifically about the UFO during the Apollo mission. And he kind of smirked. Everybody talks about how the guy was standoffish and all that. One-on-one, he was very charming, had a very dry sense of humor, great guy. But in a small group setting, he was equally as charming and equally as willing to talk. And there were probably, I don't know, maybe half a dozen of us there, students and himself. And he proceeded to tell the story about, yes, they did look out the windows, and yes, they did see a kind of a sparkling, twinkling, on again, off again kind of light. And they did call back to Houston, and he said, the first thought that it had been the boosters. And he said, but after we talked about that made no sense. They were too far away. And he said, we talked about it. And he said, there's no question in my mind, and I've never forgotten this. He said, what we saw were the panels from the service module. The service module, if you'll remember, that thing kind of opened up like a flower to allow the command module to turn around and then dock with the lunar module. Mm-hmm. And those panels peeled off, and momentum being what it is, they kept going. And as they got further away, and of course I don't remember if there were 3 or 4 of them. I think there may have been 4 of them. And they all went kind of in different directions because there were 4 of them pointed in a different direction. And he said, "There's no question in my mind that's what we saw." So
but he didn't relate anything to you about craft that had been given to the United States or any other country, or having personally flown any of these craft. Now, did he?
Art, if Professor Armstrong had said that, he would have done it firmly, tongue-in-cheek. The guy had a great sense of humor. He really did. Very dry. So he could have said something like that, but no, he said nothing like that. He was asked a serious question by a senior in an aerospace engineering graduating class, and
right.
And he answered it seriously. So for all these people who want to talk about Neil Armstrong this and Neil Armstrong that, I knew the man, great guy, and I know how he answered the question because I heard the question asked and I heard him answer it.
Fair enough. I really appreciate that account. Thank you so very much.
And we will leave Art there for tonight. We have just enough content left that we'll be able to make one more episode out of it tomorrow night. However, I do have a friend of mine who did make about a 15-minute story. So let's go to him. He is known by the Oddity Archive. And with that, we will do the Oddity Archives recap of the number station phenomenon. The host that will be with us is Ben Minette. And of course, things that have come out since he's done it, I will add to it where necessary. So with that being said, Ben, take it away, please. Ben, that's the NOA Weather Radio.
And welcome to the Oddity Archive, the show that resides nice and far on the left side of the dial because it feels so right. Hardy har har. Well, once again, the viewers have spoken, and once again, you're sending me headfirst into conspiracy theory land. So, today we're going to take a look at something that's admittedly a little bit outside of my area of expertise. We're going to look at some radio oddities. And, yeah, you know the drill. Put on your favorite tinfoil hat and your best pair of asbestos underwear, because we're off to Conspiracyville. Those other bands of radio frequencies, like shortwave and longwave, have long been used by ships and airplanes, and sometimes they're used for public consumption. The BBC used to have a shortwave broadcast, but most of these broadcasts are for private military and weather communications. However, for many decades, despite the best efforts of the FCC and pretty much every other country's equivalent thereof, the airwaves have also been home to many pirate broadcasters. Most famously, you've got the European pirate radio stations of the 1960s and 70s who wanted to compete with the usually government-run radio world.
Oh, please tell me you have the one that got firebombed.
Sometimes the competition between the pirates would become dangerous. In May of 1971, Radio North Sea International was firebombed by the competing Radio Veronica.
It's the Mebo 2 on fire. SOS, Mayday, 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 SOS. This is an SOS call from Radio North Sea International. Once again we have trouble. Somebody's bombed us this time. 4 miles from the coast of Scheveningen. The radio ship Mebo 2 is on fire. We need help immediately. We need help immediately. Radio North Sea International broadcasts on the medium wave at 220 meters, 1367 kilohertz. Shortwave 6,205 kilohertz, 49 meters, European band. FM channel 44, 100 megahertz. Please stay tuned to these 3 frequencies for further information. Mebo 2 is now abandoning ship.
But of course, it's not the good, legitimate broadcasts that the archive's viewers tend to be interested in, but of course, it's the creepy and seemingly covert ones that everybody seems to love.
That's what we're here for.
Back in the late 90s, a tiny British indie record label known as Eardial released a 4, ultimately expanded to 5, disc box set of various air checks captured by amateur shortwave radio geeks called the Connet Project, named after a Czech word that was misheard on one of these recordings by the set's producer. Indeed, if you're curious, the original 4-disc set can be downloaded for free, legally, sanctioned by Eardial itself, at archive.org. Just search for the Connet Project. Anyway, the bulk of this set consists of broadcasts in which seemingly random streams of numbers are read off, usually by electronic means, and are often bookended by odd electronic noises or snippets of music.
November, Uniform. November, Uniform. Es folgen Mitteilungen für 264, 264, 56 Gruppen.
And sometimes these transmissions are jammed by folks with no appreciation whatsoever for a good batch of numbers. Like a moron, I listened to the entire 4-disc edition of this box set. And I'm sure you're really looking for my opinion. Yeah, to me it sounds like the greatest hits of every crappy industrial or alternative rock group that's just trying to scare their listeners a little. And indeed it makes sense because these clips have been sampled many times by a lot of these bands. So it shouldn't come as any great shock that if you watch these things on YouTube, a lot of times their ever so lovely copyright bots often mistake an amateur recording of a number station for a track from some crappy indie band. Now, of course, the all-too-pervasive theory on the internet is that these stations must be used for nefarious purposes, and for the only time in archive history, I actually sort of half agree. I think that these could be used for spying purposes, but more than likely I think like maybe drug running purposes. Now, if there really is some sort of government covert thing going on, I think it's more that the governments would want to keep certain frequencies open in case a really bad national or international conflict would arise, and they would need to get info out quickly and accessibly to the military and stuff. But that's just my take. Okay, I apologize in advance for the bad sound on this, but I figured since we're talking number stations today, I suppose you'd like to know how to potentially decode one of these broadcasts. This is going to be a tough one to explain. To the best of my admittedly light research, the numbers transmission is like a more sophisticated version of the proverbial Little Orphan Annie's secret decoder ring. Now, this is done with the use of what is known as a one-time pad, which is a single-use alphabetical key used to decipher a message given numerically. The basic system is based on the numerical value given to a letter of a given alphabet. So in our alphabet, A equals 0 on up through Z, which equals 25. So say I just want to say hi to my fellow spy. It's not too hard. H-I, two-letter message. So today's predetermined key is WF. Our organization is only doing two-letter messages today. Keys can go on indefinitely, though. So the numerical values of WF are 22 and 5. So the outgoing message would be encrypted as such. The two numerical values, the message and key, are added together. So in this case, 22 for W, and then 7 for our outgoing H equals 29. And then F, which equals 5, plus our outgoing I, which is 8, is 13. Now, if you have a number that is 26 or greater, this whole system can start over again. So 26 would equal A, 27 would equal B, or what you could do is you can take what you've got and deduct 26, which would give you a 3, and the 3 is also equal to a D. Again, 29D, 3D. The show, 3D, no way. And then 5 plus 8, which equals 13, which needs no further work. That equals an N. So the outgoing message would be DN, the numerical equivalent thereof. To decode this message, you take the numerical values of your received letters, in this case 3 for D and 13 for N. Then you take your key and their corresponding numerical values, remember them, W, F, 22, and 5, and subtract the key values, in this case 22 and 5, from the coded values 3 and 13. So what we do is 3 minus 22, which gives us a negative 19, and then 13 minus 5, which gives us an 8. Now, if you have a negative number, you'll need another key, or another code, whatever you want to call it. In this case, negative 19 is an H. Or if you don't want to play that way, you can add a 26, which brings you up to 7, and 7 is the same H that you were trying to get anyway. 8 we don't need to do anything with, that's an I. So, here's our key. Here's our little message. 7 equals H. 8 equals I. Hi. It's a lot of work, isn't it? I don't feel so well.
Be careful, Benny boy. Relax.
found a tip online that some of the number stations aren't actually there to give out encrypted messages, but are part of some greater conspiracy. Imagine that. So, what I heard was that the 5,500 6,000 kilocycles area of the shortwave band is actually there to give out future winning lottery numbers.
Oh my God,
so
really?
Oh, what the hell? I'll just buy a lottery ticket and see if it works. And long story short, I won! I won! Yeah! This has been the final episode.
Wait, whoa, Betty! I'm
out of here!
Betty! I still got content to do. Where you going? Betty boy, get back here.
Yes.
Betty! Betty? Benny? Benny boy? You coming back? Ben? Oh, there you are. You really believe that was a winning ticket?
Might as well try and finish this stupid episode. Of course, the shortwave band is so much more than just number stations. For example, ever since the late 70s, early 80s, very much still during the Cold War, the Russian government has run a shortwave station known as UBB-76. Now, this station mostly plays the constant, repeated, grating sounds of an alarm, but it is broken up occasionally by the odd military command, and the odd ballet, and the odd 70s oldie.
UVB 76. Really, Jenny? Benny?
Not that the number stations can't get their groove on when they feel the need.
This coming from what's known as the Tyrolean Music Station.
One station that usually gets lumped in with the number stations, despite a complete and utter lack of numbers, is known as the backwards music station. Despite a distinct and utter lack of music, backwards or forwards. And this station is also known as XM, despite a distinct and utter lack of ties to the satellite radio provider. But this station does have a purpose. It's used to be played underwater in areas with a whale overpopulation problem.
Underpopulation, you meant, Eddie.
Kind of familiar.
Underpopulation, Benny.
Now, as you may or may not have noticed during the opening of today's show, our usual opening theme may have sounded a little lo-fi to you. That's because I was taking the playback from our very own shortwave broadcast, and it got jammed. Big shock. Anyway, When I was researching this episode, I realized it's actually pretty easy to do your own shortwave broadcasts, so I figured we should have our own station. And, well, it didn't go real well.
You got a little bit of that?
About 45 minutes. In fact, our final moment on air is what you heard at the beginning of today's show. But anyway, for posterity's sake, I decided to tape and film a little bit of our all too brief existence on the air. Film because it appeases the archive's advertisers.
Wait, you have advertisers?
Let's take an all too brief look at the short-lived, late lamented archive radio. Yeah, close enough. Eddie Money here at KBEN. That's right, K-Ben, shortwave's least favorite choice for everybody's least favorite music because they have no taste. That was Eddie Money there, going to his self-titled debut album from 1977. And I've really got a special treat for you. It's a lovely afternoon here at K-Ben, and I figured we'd do something really cool here. So let me get over here. Real special treat. We're going to truly take a trip back to the early 70s. Now, this next track is straight from an original 8-track cassette. An original classic from Red. Yes. Come on.
Did you check your 8-track machine before you started this camp, Benny Boy?
Come on. Give me my tape back. Ah! My tape! My tape! My Fred album! My tape is ruined! My favorite Fred album! No! Wait, what now?
39715. 397.
Sounds like you got your own problems there, Benny. I'll leave you to, I guess, your Brad album and wish you the best of luck. As for us, this fight will bring us to the end of our run here today. We'll, of course, be back tomorrow with more lovelies. We'll, of course, have Day 5's Place for Arch Diminy, as well as Voice of Dominion in Part 1, more Frauditors, Auditors, and Substits in Part 2. And since we've been doing it for the last few days, I promise no Flat Earthers tomorrow in Part 2. And we will conclude with the Art Bell UFO from Dark Matter in the overnight tomorrow night. So as always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Get us to the goal of 50,000 views, 1,000 subscribers. So Boxy over and Extras and YouTube pay attention to us. CoinBase and Ibotta are below, you know the drill. And until next time, like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another. And it's always a great new world to release the Krakens. Have a great night. Enjoy your night's rest. And we'll see you tomorrow as we march along here from day one.